Sir, this amendment relating to clause 8 is most important at it affords us yet another opportunity to explain to the government and to all those friends who do not still see eye to eye with us that clause 8 is perhaps the blackest clause in the bill. We have made it very clear, Mr. Deputy Chairman, that we have very many clauses in this bill to support. That is a matter of great satisfaction to us. Now, sir, whatever the government may be saying, whatever the Prime Minister may be theorizing, whatever new discoveries may be made by him with regard to the preposition of linguistic states and whatever accusations may be made against the other parties are breaking the unity of India, the fact remains that the States Reorganization Commission, as we have it before us, recognize in practice or reorganization of India largely on the basis of language. Nothing can detract this outstanding fact with regard to this bill. Therefore, sir, let us be very clean about it. It is not something that we are saying for the first time, and it is not something which is very extraordinary. The whole bill is based on the acceptance of the underlying principle of linguistic reorganization of states. A number of states on this basis are going to come into existence, but when we come to that region of Maharashtra and Gujarat, we find a different type of dispensation of meted out to them. There is no logic in it, there is no reason in it, and there is no principle in it, except that the ruling party, because of certain reasons, suddenly decided upon taking these prepositions course. Mr. Deputy Chairman, clause 8 creates a bilingual state of Bombay, but I can tell you straightway that the bill was circulated to the various states legislatures. It did not contain the provision of the kind that we have before us. Thus, the people in the state and their legislators in particular, we denied the opportunity of addressing their mind to these particular clauses which we have before us. They discarded certain other things too. It was open to them to discard this matter also. They could not foresee that the government would suddenly so change its mind that it would be necessary to discuss it, that concentrated on the provision of the bill based on the recommendations of the commission. They had before them two important documents, one the commission's recommendations with regard to Bombay, and the other the proposals contained in the bill that went to them. They concentrated only on those things, and they could never have seen that certain honorable gentlemen would collect together in the lobbies signatures of various members on a little piece of paper and flaunt them before the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister, who has not been easily changeable in regard to this matter, would suddenly change and accept the suggestion for the creation of a bilingual state. Is how this clause came into existence. And today, sir, in this house, we are called upon to support this clause regardless of what the Maharashtrians think about it and regardless of what the Gujaratis think about it. Mr. Deputy Chairman, it pains us when we hear the Honorable Minister talking in one breath with regard to Himachal Pradesh and other states about the people's will, and yet when it comes to the question of Gujarat, the right is denied to it we find today before our eyes the mighty upsurge of the people of Gujarat demanding a linguistic state, and it is perfectly known to the government as to anybody else in the country that the people of Gujarat to a man are opposed to this provision of the bill, and also, sir, the people of Maharashtra are opposed to this bill. Are those not facts? Can you explain why you are ignoring them? I found grave silence on the part of the Home Minister. When he spoke in reply to the debate, he had nothing to say about the situation obtaining in Gujarat except to express his feelings for Shri Murari Bhai Desai. All of us have got feelings for him, but greater are the people of Gujarat. I should have thought that the development which is shocking Gujarat to its very depth would have street the conscience of the Honorable Minister. They should have told us as to what is this thing that is happening there. They should have told the House why they are ignoring the feelings that are coming from Gujarat that this particular provision has got to be amended. They did nothing of this kind. They remained silent. Mr. Deputy Chairman, in the course of the debate, you know that I tried to find out as to how the government's mind was reacting to the developments in Gujarat. Honorable members of the Treasury benches thought the silence was golden in this case. How is this the way for a responsible government to function? Is this the way to establish the authority of democracy? Is this the way to present to the parliament, to the people, this question? I should have thought the honorable ministers would give the best of thoughts to the developments in Gujarat even at this late hour and see whether that situation could be met. We wished certain changes in the bill which would be acceptable to the people of Gujarat. A dogmatism has taken possession of them. Once they have decided that a bilingual state should come, they decided that it remain. I tell you that you are swimming against currents. You are fighting against the forces of history. Mr. Deputy Chairman, we were surprised to hear the Honorable Home Minister talking about the unanimous verdict of the Lok Sabha. It is true that when the people was put to vote finally, there was not a single dissenting voice. How could there be? Because there are many provisions in the bill.